Today, I'd like to give you an overview of my game RPG Loom. We're now here in the middle of January in 2026, and I just realised I hadn't done a video to talk about this game. Let me clarify that. I've given some devlogs, and I've recorded those, and I've put those onto YouTube, but I haven't actually shown how the game works. I've only talked about how I built it. So, this is an idle RPG. It's deterministic and incremental. I believe that's industry terms for how they describe these sorts of games. It is deterministic, as you would expect, and you're gaining levels in an incremental fashion. I suppose that's how it is, but that's kind of like all RPGs. So this is the interface. You can see along the top: total level, combat, total XP, and gold. This is my main character that I've been using as I've been developing the game. So it may not be exactly as you would have it whenever you're playing the game. There may be some things that will change. So on the first screen, the first tab, we have activity. This is your location. It says I'm idle because I'm not doing anything. The HP, which is pretty obvious what that is, health points. The event log is what you do. This is where the activities will pop up whenever you're doing something. There is a nice picture of where you are, and if you press on the picture there in the UI, it will pop up and it will show you the picture for that location. We're at Jagged Peak, or Jagged Peaks. Jagged Peak, and so that's the image. That was all created by AI, as all the pictures are. I can mine here, or if I want to, I can also go and hunt. So you can see that I'm mining, I'm getting XP, I'm getting some loot, which happens to be ore. I can stop that activity. I can then go hunting. As you'll see here, we'll have some combat, and that was a level 16 Harpy, and now a level 15 Yeti. So this is all fairly simple, and if you've played idle RPGs, this is probably quite familiar to you. If you haven't, then you might think this maybe seems a little bit boring because all you see is like text flashing up and there isn't really much to do. It's interaction by pressing buttons, but there's no map that you can walk around on. This is obviously a very different type of game. They can be quite popular on mobile. There is a few that are in the browser too. If you're familiar with RuneScape, you may have heard that there is an official tie-in with an RPG, an idle RPG. I think it's like Melv or Idle, something like this. I have played it. I just don't recall. It's a couple of years back now. So there is a little bit of that sort of influence in what I'm doing. Obviously, things like RuneScape and other RPGs that I've played, they have an influence upon how I've tried to style this game. It's not meant to be in the RuneScape universe. This is a completely new universe, a new story, whatever. You can travel to different locations. There is one town and then a bunch of other locations of differing levels, and you go to a different place in order to do different activities. So if we go to Whispering Forest, come back to the activity screen, and you can see that the picture has changed, and there's actually other things you can do here. For example, woodcutting or foraging. And again, you just press on one of the buttons in order to set the activity, such as foraging or onto woodcutting, and then your character will start to woodcut. And just for the sake of those who are curious, this is how the Whispering Forest will look like. There's a couple of mushrooms, which is actually part of what you will be collecting whenever you forage. You'll be collecting mushrooms, and of course, given it's a forest, there's also woodcutting, which I think is kind of obvious and self-explanatory. The inventory is not particularly great. It shows you all of the things that I've collected with my test character. There is equipment slots such that you could wear your weapons or armor, which I haven't really done much with, so this does look a little bit ugly from how I want it to be, but it's just I've been focusing most upon the functionality. In all of this, I think there's maybe nothing super exciting. If you like this sort of game, this will appeal. However, there is something that I think will be interesting once I get to the quest screen and I show you some of the things that I've been working on lately and trying to get to work, but not quite 100%. You can craft a whole bunch of different things. That's all sort of it ties in with the lore of this, which there's not much lore, but it's all the right theme, shall we say. So if you can mine copper or whatever, then you're going to be able to create copper items or iron or steel. So I think that's should be quite obvious. Character screen, there's some attributes which are calculated from the levels which are related to your skills. So for example, melee, ranged, magic, so on and so forth. Some are set to level 1 and have 0 experience. That's because I haven't trained those up. And it can also be that they're just not fully wired into the game. There's some things that have been started to be coded, but they don't actually exist in the game just yet. Lastly, there you can see if you ignore the debug menu here, which wouldn't show whenever you're playing the game, it's just for me in order to, as you might expect, whenever things break or whenever bugs are found, I need to go and fix them, and so I have a separate tab where I've been doing some special checks. Now the quests part, I think, is where there's some interesting things. Now, some of these are pretty typical fetch quests or whatever. There's daily quests, as should be very familiar to you if you've played RPGs before. However, the very new part, the sort of secret sauce, which is kind of where I was heading towards this whole time in building this sort of simple game, is being able to generate a quest using AI. And so you can see here there's this big purple button that says Generate AI Adventure Quest. And an adventure quest is a particular type of quest where you have multiple subquests that create part of a greater adventure. So an adventure is, say, 5 tasks. And you can see one I've started to play already. This is one I generated earlier, the Glacial Requiem. And it starts in the Jagged Peak map. However, by the end, you actually have to travel to a different map in order to complete the quest. And that's something that I was wanting to do. I'm actually hoping to add more variety such that you can travel to multiple locations and not just say 2. This has been quite tricky going through the testing process, as many parts have broken. Such that you could accept a quest but you wouldn't get any XP, or you could accept a quest but nothing would happen, no activity would be set. It's been really strange to try to figure out how to get the quest accepted, then for a subtask to show, then to accept that, then for an activity to happen, and then for XP to be generated while doing the activity will all have been accepted. It's all sort of really sort of small things which should be easy to fix, but it was actually a bigger headache than you might expect. So if you look further down, I'm showing you that there's a subtask which is associated with the adventure, so it's all part of the same thing. This main adventure should show as started, but it doesn't. I think there's a slight glitch there in code. You can see that I've actually done 3 of the tasks for this adventure, which are fully completed, and now I'm on to the 4th task, which is forge a solar seal, and underneath you can see that it's there. So what's actually happening in the background is that the AI will generate the text for the quest, so it will make it specific to the theme of this game, so it has that information. However, the actual quests themselves, the tasks, are something which is inside the code. So it's something like a tool call that the AI does, where it calls a tool to create the quests and the activities, but the text is something that the AI generates on the fly. So this is like an agentic pattern where the AI has some tool that it can call, which is actually local on my machine. It calls a tool to create the quests, and it provides the text. The checking of the quest and the tasks is all done locally. So that's all done within my machine. None of that goes towards AI. So it's where it's maybe not fully agentic, where in a fully agentic app, the agent would actually check the conditions to see if the conditions have been met as to whether the task has been completed. However, given that this is deterministic, we don't really need that extra part. Now, whether we have multiple mini adventures, and then perhaps whether we want to have some fuzzy logic or some sort of non-determinism in here, then we could perhaps add a sort of a more sort of fully agentic capabilities within this app. Although I don't think it's really needed. I think it's interesting, and that's really kind of what I wanted to do with RPG Loom, was to try to test some of these agentic capabilities in order to see what I could do, see where things would break, see where things do or don't make sense, especially as often we do want determinism, but sometimes we also want some non-determinism, and often we want text to be generated, and so we want that text to be fitting with the theme, and we want that to fit with the actual quests that we want to create. So it's a little bit different from some of the apps I've created before, where I've created quite a few games, as you can see in my previous videos. I've also created apps that will generate text, which have been for novels, but that's kind of two different things which are not really related. And this, where I'm working on quests, this is actually where it brings them together. It brings together the gaming side and the text generation side and puts them together in order to build out quests. And I think that's been quite interesting to learn, even though it hasn't quite gone perfectly to plan. There's more to do here, and I think there's more to explore, and I want to see this also probably in a more complicated game. That's really what I wanted to say in this video. I hope that you found it interesting. It was a nice overview of RPG Loom, plus a little bit of the agentic patterns that I'm trying to bake into the games that I build. If you can like and subscribe, that would be really appreciated. Also, if you could comment what you do or don't like, or what you've done with the technology, or what you haven't done, or what you hope to do. It's really interesting for me to learn from you guys, and also to get some feedback on where the videos could be better, or maybe where you'd like to steer the content a little bit. That would be interesting. If you're on GitHub, you can find the code for this, because all of the code is open source for basically all of the projects that I've done so far. It's all been open source. It's all in GitHub. If you want to send some stars there too, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.